You stand before a mirror that no longer lies. Richmond Palace, 1603. Elizabeth refuses to look. She orders every mirror covered, then shattered. Glass rains across marble floors like frozen tears. This is not vanity. This is horror. You feel it now. The sensation of decay crawling beneath your skin. Your teeth rot in your skull, loose and black. Your face collapses into itself, hidden under layers of white lead and vinegar. The mask you painted on for 60 years has become your flesh, and your flesh is dying. What happens when the mask you wore to survive becomes the prison you die in? This is not just a death. This is the unraveling of an illusion that held a kingdom together. The Virgin Queen, Gloriana, the woman who made herself immortal by becoming untouchable. But immortality, you discover, is just another word for slow poisoning. You cannot look away from what you've become, so you destroy every surface that might reveal the truth. But the truth doesn't need mirrors. It's written in the trembling of your hands, the stench of infection beneath perfume, the silence of courtiers who once worshipped you. How long had she been dying? You step back from shattered glass and see what she built to survive. Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, an icon carved from living flesh. She didn't choose beauty. She chose immortality. And immortality has a price paid in poison. You feel the white lead burn your skin, layer after layer, until your face is no longer a face but a mask. The wigs hide the baldness. The corsets hold up a body that can no longer hold itself. Every morning, you paint yourself over yourself. Every night, you erase yourself. This is not vanity. This is the architecture of survival. In a world that devours weak women, she became a statue. Untouchable, impenetrable, immortal. But immortality demands a sacrifice. Your humanity. Decades without being touched. Decades without being known. Decades performing a role you no longer remember choosing. Sartre said hell is other people. But what if hell is the mask you can no longer remove? The question no one dares ask. When did it stop being a choice? When did the performance become the prison? The performance became flesh, and the flesh began to rot. Her legs are wrapped in cloth soaked with blood and pus. Ulcers bloom like dark flowers beneath the silk stockings, eating through skin, through muscle, down to bone. An abscess swells in her throat. Swallowing becomes agony. Speaking becomes torture. Yet she speaks. She must speak. To fall silent is to disappear. At 3 a.m, you pace the halls of your own palace like a ghost haunting the ruins of your life. Insomnia is your only companion. Sleep means vulnerability. Sleep means surrender. You smell it now. The stench of infection beneath the rosewater and musk. Gangrenous flesh hidden under layers of embroidered silk. Your body is a battlefield of untreated wounds, and you are losing. She refused doctors, refused medicine, refused to acknowledge weakness, because weakness is execution. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, taught her that lesson on a scaffold when Elizabeth was just 2 years old. Fragility equals death. Vulnerability equals the blade. So she became invulnerable, untouchable, stone. But the body remembers what the mind denies. And now, in Richmond Palace, her chosen tomb, the body demands its reckoning. Richmond Palace, winter 1603. Cold stone, darkness thick as velvet. The air chokes with incense meant to hide the smell of rot. This is where she chooses to die, not accidentally, intentionally. The tapestries hang heavy with decades of smoke, stained with the ghosts of executed lovers and rival queens. The corridors echo with voices that no longer have bodies. Mary Stuart, Robert Devereux, Catherine Howard. The dead outnumber the living here. She returns to this place because her grandfather died here. Because as a child, these walls felt safe. There is a psychology to choosing your tomb. You return to the womb to die. The circle closes. The architecture of memory becomes the architecture of ending. The walls press inward. The ceiling lowers. The palace itself becomes a coffin. Her ladies-in-waiting stand in the shadows like statues. They watch her unravel, thread by thread, but they cannot speak. It is forbidden to suggest the queen is dying. To name death is treason. So they watch in silence as she moves toward the only piece of furniture that matters now, a pile of cushions on the floor. She will not lie down. She refuses the bed. Instead, she sits. And sitting, she begins her final act of defiance. She refuses to lie down. For weeks, she sits on cushions piled on the floor, staring at nothing. Her counsel begs her. Her ladies plead. Physicians whisper that rest might save her. She refuses. There's a superstition older than crowns. To lie in bed is to admit defeat, to prepare for death. She believes, no, she knows, that if she lies down, she will never rise again. The horizontal position is surrender, and she has never surrendered. You feel it now, the agony of sitting upright while your body screams for mercy. Hemorrhoids bleed into the cushions beneath you. Your spine compresses, vertebrae grinding like stones. Muscles atrophy, joints lock, but you will not lie down. You are a statue trying not to crumble, a monument refusing to fall. The mind fractures as the body fails. You speak to people who aren't there, ghosts of lovers, of rivals, of the mother you barely remember. You hear music that doesn't play, laughter that has no source. Terror of death meets inability to surrender control. You're trapped in a space between ending and refusing to end. The council watches from the doorway. They need an answer. They need a name. Who will inherit the throne? But she will not speak. She cannot let go. Not yet. England holds its breath, and she will not let it go. The council surrounds her like vultures circling a dying beast. They whisper names in the shadows. James of Scotland. Lady Arbella Stuart. Foreign princes with claims written in blood. They need her to speak. They need her to choose. She remains silent. Is it revenge? Control? Fear? Perhaps all three. Perhaps none. Grown men sweat in the cold. Fortunes rise and fall with every ragged breath she takes. The kingdom itself is paralyzed, suspended between reigns, between eras. History waits for her permission to continue. But you understand now, don't you? The cruelty of her silence is also her last defense. The second she names a successor, she becomes irrelevant. A ghost. A footnote. The power drains from her body into theirs. She ceases to matter. So she withholds. It is the only power she has left. She trusts no one because she was taught that trust is fatal. Her mother trusted her father. Her cousin Mary trusted her captors. Elizabeth Woodville trusted promises. All of them died betrayed. So she holds the secret like a knife pressed against England's throat. And in the shadows, Robert Cecil watches, waiting, planning. He knows what she will not say, and he will take it anyway. Robert Cecil watches from the corner, hunchbacked, calculating, a spider in silk. He is her chief minister, her creation, the son of the man who kept her throne secure for decades. She made him powerful. She taught him statecraft. She showed him how to survive. And now, while she still breathes, he writes letters to James of Scotland, arranging the future, negotiating her obsolescence. The betrayal is complete, and it is invisible. You see it now. Everyone around you is already living in the future, a future where you are a corpse. They step around your dying body as if it's already a monument. They speak in past tense while your heart still beats. The gears turn. The clockwork of succession clicks into place, and you sit frozen at the center, a relic of a machinery that no longer needs you. But here's the question that cuts deeper than any blade. Did she know? Was she naive? Or did she always understand this was inevitable? Perhaps she taught them this ruthlessness. Perhaps she showed them how to survive by learning when to abandon the dying. The student becomes the executioner. The lesson completes itself. And in her fracturing mind, the ghosts grow louder. They have so much to say. She begins to see them, not metaphorically. She describes them to her ladies with the clarity of someone reporting the weather. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, stands in the corner, headless, the stump of her neck a black void where her face should be. She doesn't speak. She cannot. But her presence fills the room like ice water. Robert Dudley waits by the window. Her only love. The man she could never marry, could never touch, could never keep. He looks at her the way he did before he died, before she let him die without saying goodbye. Mary Queen of Scots sits beside her on the cushions. Her executed cousin, the woman Elizabeth, signed to death with a stroke of ink. Mary's hands are folded in her lap, patient, forgiving, damning. The room grows cold. Whispers crawl through empty corridors. You feel it, the sensation of being watched by eyes that have no bodies. But these aren't ghosts. They're guilt made visible, regret given form, loneliness dressed in familiar faces. She killed Mary. She abandoned Dudley. She never knew her mother. And now, surrounded by the living who wait for her to die, her mind conjures the only companions she ever truly had, the dead. But she has one defiance left, one final act of will. She speaks. She begins to see them, not metaphorically. She describes them to her ladies with the clarity of someone reporting the weather. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, stands in the corner, headless, the stump of her neck a black void where her face should be. She doesn't speak. She cannot. But her presence fills the room like ice water. Robert Dudley waits by the window. Her only love. The man she could never marry, could never touch, could never keep. He looks at her the way he did before he died, before she let him die without saying goodbye. Mary Queen of Scots sits beside her on the cushions. Her executed cousin, the woman Elizabeth, signed to death with a stroke of ink. Mary's hands are folded in her lap, patient, forgiving, damning. The room grows cold. Whispers crawl through empty corridors. You feel it, the sensation of being watched by eyes that have no bodies. But these aren't ghosts. They're guilt made visible, regret given form, loneliness dressed in familiar faces. She killed Mary. She abandoned Dudley. She never knew her mother. And now, surrounded by the living who wait for her to die, her mind conjures the only companions she ever truly had, the dead. But she has one defiance left, one final act of will. She speaks. Late February, 1603. She speaks. Her voice is barely a whisper. The counselors lean in, straining to hear. Some pretend to listen. Others have already stopped. Her final speech to Parliament is read by proxy. Her words, but not her voice. Even this is taken from her. But the words are defiant, eloquent, fierce. Though you have had and may have many mightier and wiser princes, you never had, nor shall have any that will love you better. You hear the heartbreak beneath the performance. Even now, dying and betrayed, she still performs. She still tries to control the narrative. She still believes that if she chooses the right words, she can make them remember her the way she wants to be remembered. A dying actress delivering her final line. Voice breaking, body failing. But the performance must continue. It has always continued. They nod. They murmur approval. They write it down for history. But they're not listening. Not really. They're already thinking about James. About the future. About a world where she is a story, not a queen. Legacy is meaningless when you're still alive to see it ignored. And then, finally, her body makes the choice her mind refused. She collapses. Early March. She falls. Not gently, not gracefully. She collapses mid-stride, pacing the shadows at 3 in the morning. Her body hits the stone floor like a monument toppling. The sound echoes through Richmond Palace, the sound of an era ending. Her ladies scream. Blood pools beneath her. Panic erupts like fire in dry wood. The realization spreads through the room. The queen is mortal. They lift her, carry her to the bed she refused for weeks. She fights them, weakly, uselessly, her hands clawing at air, at silk, at anything that might keep her upright. But the body has made its choice. The mind no longer matters. Horizontal, vulnerable, defeated. The foundation cracks. The statue crumbles. 70 years of holding herself together, and it ends like this, carried by servants, placed in a bed like a child. But perhaps there is relief in stopping. You have been performing for so long, holding yourself upright against gravity, against time, against the weight of a crown that was always too heavy. Is this defeat, or is this mercy? The vigil begins. They gather around the bed like mourners at a tomb, and she, finally horizontal, stares at the ceiling and waits. The death watch begins. 2 weeks, 14 days of slow unraveling. She lies in bed, drifting between consciousness and something darker. Courtiers take shifts like guards outside a tomb. Priests kneel and pray. Doctors apply leeches to her arms, draining blood that's already poisoned. Nothing helps. Nothing ever helps. The room smells of death, sweet rot beneath incense, infection beneath perfume. You hear the rattle of her breathing. Wet, mechanical. Each breath sounds like drowning. Her skin turns yellow, waxy, corpse-like. Her hands claw at the sheets as if trying to climb out of her own body. But she's aware. She hears everything. She hears them discussing her funeral. The music, the procession, the monument. They speak as if she's already gone. She feels them letting go. One by one, their attention shifts from her to what comes after. Archbishop Whitgift sits beside her, reading prayers for the dying. His voice drones like distant bells. She responds, barely a whisper. I am tied. I am tied. Tied to life? To duty? To the throne she can no longer hold. No one knows. No one asks. But then, one final gesture. One last act of will. Her hand moves. March 23rd, near midnight. She can no longer speak. Her voice, the weapon she wielded for 70 years, is gone. Robert Cecil leans close. His face hovers above hers like a shadow. He asks her to signal, to give them permission for what they've already decided. He lists names. Foreign princes, distant relatives, pretenders, and then James of Scotland. Her hand rises, slowly, trembling. She lifts it above her head and forms a shape, fingers curved, palms open. A crown. The room holds its breath. Is this real? Is she coherent? Or are they interpreting the spasm of a dying woman's muscles as divine will? No one knows. No one will ever know. But they have what they need: permission, absolution, the illusion of her choice. Even her final decision is ambiguous, filtered through the interpretations of men who need her approval to abandon her. The gesture is powerful. It is also pathetic. A puppeteer's final movement. Strings cut, hand falling back to the sheets. Cecil nods. He leaves the room. The letters are already written. And she lies in the bed, staring at nothing, as the final hours crawl toward dawn. The final 24 hours. She stops responding. Her eyes remain open, staring at the ceiling, but they see nothing or everything. No one can tell. Her breathing is shallow, a whisper of air, barely enough to move her chest. The candles burn low. Shadows lengthen across the walls like reaching hands. Time suspends itself, caught between heartbeats. Her ladies weep silently. They kneel beside the bed, holding her cold hands, whispering prayers she cannot hear. The priests murmur blessings for the dying. Their words blur into white noise. Outside, London waits in uneasy quiet. Rumors spread through the streets. The Queen is dead. Then retracted. Then spread again. The city holds its breath. The kingdom suspends between reigns. But what does she see? Does she review her reign? 45 years of survival, of strategy, of sacrifice? Does she think of her mother's execution? The scaffold, the sword, the moment that shaped every choice she ever made? Or is there only darkness now? Only silence? The slow retreat of consciousness like tide pulling away from shore? No one knows what the dying see. But at 2 a.m. on March 24th, 1603, her breathing changes. The end arrives. March 24th, 1603. Between 2 and 3 a.m., Elizabeth I stops breathing. There is no drama, no final words, no lightning or thunder. Her chest simply stops rising. The rattle in her throat ceases. The room falls silent. Someone says, she is gone. And then chaos. Controlled. Efficient. Rehearsed. Messengers are dispatched. Seals are broken. Letters are unsealed. Riders thunder through the night toward Scotland, toward James, toward the future. Within hours, he is proclaimed king. She has been dead less than a day. Already, she is history. A candle snuffs out. The performance ends. The audience rises from their seats and leaves before the final curtain falls. 70 years of life. 45 years of reign. Decades of survival, strategy, sacrifice. And it ends like this, a body cooling in a bed while men rush past it toward power. The room empties. The vigil ends. Only her ladies remain, weeping over a corpse that was once a queen. But outside, England moves on. The machinery continues. The gears turn, and her body waits for what comes next. The corpse becomes property. Her body is embalmed. The process is mechanical, industrial, efficient. They cut her open, remove the organs, stuff the cavity with herbs and spices, rosemary, lavender, cloves, as if preparing meat for preservation. They sew her shut with thick thread, stitch by stitch, closing the woman who once held a kingdom together. She is no longer a person. She is a symbol to be preserved, a relic, a commodity. They dress her in royal regalia, the same costume she wore in life, now draped over a shell. They paint her face one last time, white lead over dead skin. The mask applied to the mask. The smell of decay seeps through the perfume. Sweet rot beneath the roses. The embalmers handle her body like butchers handle meat, with competence, without reverence. Her corpse lies in state for a month, a full month, while James travels slowly from Scotland, taking his time, accepting congratulations. She waits. A placeholder, a bookmark between reigns. Even in death, she serves the state. Even as a corpse, she performs her duty to bridge the gap between what was and what comes next. The final indignity. She cannot rest until he permits it. The funeral, when it finally comes, is spectacular. April 28th, 1603. The funeral procession begins. Theater, pure theater. An effigy of Elizabeth is carried through London streets. Painted, perfect, more lifelike than the corpse it represents. The wooden face wears the mask she painted for 70 years. White, ageless, immortal. The crowds weep, or they pretend to. It's hard to tell the difference. Trumpets sound. Drums beat slow and heavy. Black cloth drapes every window. The city performs grief the way she performed power, with precision, with spectacle, with careful control. But beneath the ceremony, hollowness. The effigy is more real than the woman. The symbol outlived the self. They mourn an icon, a myth. Gloriana, the Virgin Queen. They never knew her. She made sure of it. So did she win? Or did she lose? She controlled her image so perfectly that even her death is staged. The performance continues without her. The mask remains even when the face beneath has rotted away. But the cost was everything human. Intimacy, truth, connection. She became immortal by erasing herself. And now, as the procession winds through London toward Westminster Abbey, history begins to decide what she meant. The woman is buried. The debate begins. The decades after her death, erasure disguised as honor. James I rewrites history. He diminishes her reign, emphasizes his own legitimacy, paints himself as the rightful correction to her deviation. Within years, Elizabeth becomes a footnote to male power, a curiosity, an anomaly, a woman who ruled only because no man was available. The Virgin Queen mythology solidifies, hardens like cement. She is no longer human. She is icon, symbol, lesson. A statue replaces the person. Cold marble where warm flesh once suffered. Here is the tragedy she could not escape. She sacrificed everything to be remembered, and memory itself became a kind of death. The woman disappears. The symbol remains. They remember Gloriana. They forget Elizabeth. They remember the crown. They forget the skull beneath it. So ask yourself, is legacy worth the price of being known? She was never touched, never loved as herself, never allowed to be fragile, to fail, to simply exist without performance. She became eternal by becoming inhuman. She won immortality. But immortality is just another word for being frozen, preserved but not alive, remembered but not understood. The mask she wore to survive became her tomb. And now, centuries later, we stand before that tomb and ask, what was it all for? You've seen her die, but why did you watch? There's a voyeurism in tragedy, isn't there? A hunger for the suffering of the powerful. We watch them fall because it comforts us, proof that even queens rot, even crowns corrode. But maybe that's not the whole truth. Maybe you recognize something in Elizabeth. The performance you maintain. The mask you wear to work, to family, to mirrors. The fear of being seen as weak, as failing, as less than the image you've built. She sat on those cushions for weeks, body screaming, because horizontal meant defeat. And you, how long have you been sitting upright, refusing rest, terrified that if you stop performing, you'll cease to matter? The mirror she smashed in Richmond Palace, the one that no longer lied, it reflects us now, but we are all dying in costume, surrounded by people already planning their next act, already living in a future where we're memories, footnotes, ghosts. Elizabeth became immortal by erasing herself. And we do the same every day in smaller ways. The grotesque lesson. Power is loneliness. Performance is prison. And the mask you wear to survive becomes the tomb you die in. Her final words echo. I am tied. I am tied. To what? To whom? To ourselves. Always to ourselves.